Check.
I just got a lot of habit.
You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony about you before the court in this case may be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Tell us your name, please, sir.
Sure, my name is Jason Shadell.
Just spell your first and last name before the court, please.
JASONSHOUDEL.
And Mr. Still, how are you employed?
Currently, I'm employed as a special agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, 13 Perry office.
And how long have you been employed with the TBI?
I've been employed as a GBI agent since September of 2007. Prior to that, I was a deputy sheriff with the Thomas County Sheriff's Office from around July of 1999 until 2007 when I got on with the GBI.
Now, Agent Still, I'm going to direct your attention to the investigation regarding Tara Grinstead. Did you and your agency participate in the investigation of the missing person as well as the subsequent death of Tara Grinstead?
We did.
Specifically, I want to direct your attention to June the 16th of 2016. Did you interview this defendant, Bo Dukes?
I did.
The person known as Bo Dukes, is he in the courtroom?
He is, sir.
Can you tell me what he's wearing, please?
Dark-colored suit with a red tie sitting at the defense table next to his attorney, John Fox.
Now, on June the 16th of 2016, when you interviewed this defendant, where did this interview take place?
We were in a small side office at the Rochelle Police Department.
In the Rochelle Police Department located in what county?
Wilcox County.
Now, with regard to that interview, how was it that you arranged to meet Mr. Dukes on this occasion at the Rochelle Police Department?
I can't recall exactly. I do know that I either got in touch with his mother or through Bo himself directly via telephone and asked him to come down to, I think it was Bo himself on the phone I ended up talking to on the phone the day before, and asked him to come down to the police department. He mentioned that he was working or had some other conflict, and the only time he had available was earlier in that morning, so we scheduled it for that morning, a little after 7, and we started the interview around 7:23 that morning.
Now, when you got to the Rochelle Police Department with this defendant, Dukes, was he under arrest at that time?
He was not.
Did you promise him anything to get him to speak with you?
No, I did not.
Did you promise him any hope or benefit to speak with you?
No, I did not.
Did you, in your course of law enforcement experience, have you seen people under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or other narcotics?
I have.
Did Mr. Dukes appear on June 16, 2016 to be under the influence of any drugs, alcohol, or other narcotics?
Not that I could tell, no, sir.
Now, with regard to that June 16, 2016 interview, did you advise the Miranda Rights on that occasion?
I did not.
And why did you not do that on that occasion?
He was merely just coming in to do an interview. It was an informative type interview. It wasn't an interrogation. It wasn't an in-custody situation. He was free to leave, free to go at any point in time. So I didn't feel like at that point it would apply to that interview.
After the interview that you conducted with Mr. Dukes on June 16, 2016, was he placed under arrest after that interview?
No, he left.
Okay. And how did he leave?
I stayed inside the office there where we did the interview for a few minutes. I think I walked him to the door. He left on his own. I'm not even sure what vehicle he left in, but he did leave on his own. Yes, sir.
Now I want to direct your attention, Agent Chevelle, to another time on February the 19th of 2017, that being a Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Did you have a second opportunity to speak with this defendant,
I did.
where did this interview take place?
What was that date?
February the 19th.
2017. Did you have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Dukes again on that day?
I did.
Was he under arrest at that time?
No, he was not.
Was anyone there with Mr. Dukes on that day?
Yes, his attorney, Mr. John Fox, was there with him. Yourself, Paul Bowden, and Kim Schwab, who was employed with Paul Bowden's office, and myself.
Okay. Following that interview, during that interview, did you promise him any hope of benefit to get him to speak with you?
I did not.
Did you notice him to be under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or narcotics on that Sunday, February the 19th of 2017?
He didn't appear to be, no, sir.
Now, after speaking with him on February 19th of 2017, was he placed under arrest at that time?
He was not.
Now, I want to direct your attention to the following Tuesday, that is February the 21st of 2017. Did you have a third chance to speak with Mr. Dukes on that day?
I did.
And on that day, did you advise him of his Miranda rights?
I did.
And how was it that you advised him of his Miranda rights?
Before he got there, I had filled out just the top portion, date, location, but He was sitting at a table, kind of catty corner for me. We read through the Miranda Rights together. I asked him, checked his education level. Could he understand, read, write, understand English language? He agreed he could. He said he'd had a little bit of college. He graduated high school. Usually my languages is based on their education level. I'll usually ask them, I'll say, well, based on the level you got to in school, I'm going to assume you can read, write, and understand English language. He acknowledged. Asked him if he was under the influence of any alcohol or drugs. He denied. We went through the Miranda form together. I usually have the person read the number 1 right on there, which is I have the right to remain silent, which he did, just acknowledging the fact that he could read. I read through the remainder of the rights. Mr. Fox was there. I asked him if he had any questions and understood his rights. He said he did. He was willing to talk to me. He signed the Miranda form, and he initialed next to each number of the rights that were read out loud. I signed the Miranda form, and Agent Madison Holland was with me at the time that we did the interview, and he signed it as a witness as well.
During the course of the interview, did you or in your presence, Madison Holland, threaten or coerce him in any way to get to speak?
Did not.
Did either one of you promise him any hope of benefit to get him to speak with you on that occasion?
We did not.
In fact, his attorney was there with him when he spoke with you on this occasion. Is that right?
He was.
To show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 1 and ask you to look at that, yes, sir?
Sure.
Are you good with State's Exhibit number 1?
Yes, sir, I am.
What is State's Exhibit number 1?
State's Exhibit number 1 is a copy of the Miranda Rights form, which I filled out and read to Mr. Dukes, which he also read and initialed and signed along with Agent Holland. This is State's Exhibit number 1.
Now, State's Exhibit number 1 and 2, an accurate copy of the original Miranda form that you filled out with Mr. Bo Dukes on February 21st of 2017.
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, this time I will tender State's Exhibit number 1.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, just a minute.
Now, Agent Chanel, showing you here at the top of this form, there's some handwriting at the top of this form. Whose handwriting is that?
That's mine.
With regard to these, there are initials out beside each of those rights. Whose initials are those?
Bo Dukes.
And did he initial those in your presence?
Yes.
Now, there's a signature down at the bottom of that form. Whose signature is that?
Bo Dukes.
And under Mr. Duke's signature, whose signature is that?
Mine.
Did Mr. Duke sign this in your presence?
He did.
And with regard to the third signature on the form, whose signature is that?
Agent Madison Holland.
All right. And did he also sign there regard to witnessing the interview in the Miranda Rights form?
Correct.
At this time, Agent Chanel, beginning with the top of the form, if you will, just begin by reading the date. If you will, read that form for us with the record.
Yes, sir. Waiver of Rights, date 2-21/2017, time 9 a.m., place GBI office, Perry. My name is Bo Dukes, period. I'm 32 years old, period. My address is 277 Wood Road, period. Completed the 12th grade in school, period. I know that Jason Shadell, Madison Holland, is special agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. He told me that. Number 1, I have the right to remain silent. Number 2, anything I say can be used against me in a court of law. Number 3, I have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with me while I'm being questioned. Number 4, if I cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent me before any questioning if I wish. And number 5, I can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statement. I understand my rights, period. Having these rights in mind, I'm now willing to talk to a law enforcement officer, period. I've not been threatened, period. I've not been promised anything, period. I've not been forced in any way to answer any questions or make any statements, period. And then the signature.
Did Mr. Dukes sign acknowledging that?
Yes, sir. And then I had him place his initials next to each number, acknowledging that those were the rights that were read to him.
Now, did Mr. Dukes or his attorney have any questions about those rights?
No, sir.
Did they ever ask you about any of those rights?
No, sir.
And after reading of those rights, did Mr. Dukes agree to speak with you on February 21st, 2017?
Yes, sir, he did.
With regard to the waiver of rights, of course, as well as the statement, those were recorded with recording devices. Is that right?
They were.
Judge, I'll have you control.
Thanks, Mark.
Briefly.
Good afternoon, Jason.
Hey, John.
Doing all right today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just a couple of brief questions. Jason, if I ask you anything which is unclear, don't understand, just let me know so I can clean it up.
Yes, sir.
All right. You told the court that Mr. Dukes met with you about 9 o'clock in the morning February 21, 2017 at the GBI field office, Region
Yes, sir.
13?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that meeting had been set up Sunday, February 19, 27, correct?
Yes,
All right. And at that meeting, February 19, 27, you listed some individuals there. You were there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Dukes was there.
Well, let me clarify. The meeting, there was 2 meetings at our office that day. The first meeting where I was discussing where Mr. Dukes, yourself, District Attorney Paul Bowden, Kim Schwalls, and Brad, I was not in that meeting during that part. I was called in after you guys had met.
Okay. And you had acted in the days prior to February 19 as a facilitator between the prosecutors you had just named and then Mr. Dukes in an effort to get them to meet.
Correct.
All right. And the purpose of that meeting was to attempt to get information that you believed Mr. Dukes may have about the disappearance or unlawful killing of Tara Grinstead, correct?
Correct.
All right. And at that meeting, you facilitated it, people came, but when the prosecutors and Mr. Dukes and his counsel met, you stepped out of the room.
Correct. I was not in there during any of that discussion.
You didn't hear anything that was said one way or another.
No, sir.
All right. After about 30 minutes, though, you came back in that room, correct?
Yes.
And the prosecutors left that room.
I recall, yes.
Okay? And then Mr. Dukes began to give you information concerning the disappearance of Ms. Grinstead, what had happened to her, that sort of information.
Yes, he gave a brief description about Ryan Duke being involved with the murder. He was shown a photograph of the orchard, which we believed, based on earlier testimony that we had gotten from a previous witness, of where we believed that where the body was destroyed, which he acknowledged on that photograph, basically saying that they were, her final remains. He mentioned that he was a former student of hers, and at that particular time, that was about it that we discussed during that meeting. The purpose of that was not to do a formal, as far as like next steps, that was
Sure.
we could set up the formal interview where we had more resources in place and other things for that Tuesday.
That's correct. But you would agree something happened during that 30-minute meeting. You weren't present for it. Something happened in that 30-minute meeting to trigger Mr. Dukes to then tell you what had happened and set up a meeting 2 days later for a multi-hour interview. Correct?
You're asking me to speculate that I know. I can't speculate as to what was said during the meeting, nor did I ask what was said in the meeting either. So I would hate to speculate. I mean, obviously something was discussed. Y'all were in there for 30 minutes, but I can't say what was discussed.
Sure, can't say what was discussed, but you would agree that after whatever discussion there was, Mr. Dukes then gave the information that was being sought in the meeting that you had set up as a facilitator between Mr. Duke and the various district attorneys for Irvin County and then the Cordial Judicial Circuit.
Once again, I can't speculate as to that, but I will say that based after our conversation on the Friday when the meeting was set up, you did indicate to me that Bo did want to come in and talk about his involvement in the case. So that's where we led to the facilitating of that next meeting. So.
And I'm not, again, asking you to speculate,
Yes,
but
sir.
it was after this 30-minute meeting with prosecutors that he then gave that initial statement and agreed to come in and give a full-length interview that was ultimately videotaped on 2/21/2017.
The way you said it, yes, that's exactly.
Okay, very good. Thanks, sir.
Anything further from Ms. Williams?
Just one other thing. On February 21st, after speaking with Mr. Dukes, was he under arrest at that time?
On the 21st?
Yes.
No, he was not under arrest on the 21st.
Thank you.
Hey, Your Honor, just a brief follow-up. In fact, on the 19th of February, after the meeting you weren't a part of, after he gives a statement, Mr. Dukes walked out of the GBI regional field office, not under arrest.
Correct.
All right. Thank you, Jesse.
All right, you sit down.
Thanks, sir.
Anything further?
From Agent Snell. That we have this on that.
Okay.
State will hold open Providence, Miss Sarah. Raise your hand, please.
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
swear or affirm the testimony of voice will be true, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Okay. Let me get you to state your name for the record.
Yes, my name's Logan Holland.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm a special agent.
Could you just have him spell that just for the court?
Oh, yes,
Sure.
sorry.
Yeah, it's Logan Holland, Logan, and last name's Holland.
How are you currently employed?
I'm a special agent with the GBI at the Region 13 field office,
And GBI, what is that?
the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you worked for GBI?
It'll be 5 years this summer.
Are you a post-certified law enforcement officer?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been post-certified?
Since December of 2009.
Prior to working with GBI, did you have any other jobs in law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were those?
I worked for the House County Sheriff's Office. I was a detention officer for a couple of years, and then I was a patrol deputy for approximately 4 after that.
Have you ever had an occasion to come in contact with the defendant in this case they abuse?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me about that?
Sure. It was on, let me check my notes, the 22nd of February, I believe. Yes.
What year?
2017. I was requested, I believe it was by my ASAC, or my supervisor, Bill Baudry, I believe it was Bill Baudry, to go and pick up Bo Dukes at the GBI office in Perry. I think Bo had reached out to law enforcement and asked me to drive him to Ben Hill County, to a wooded area. So I picked him up at about 2:20, I think, p.m.
Had you personally been involved in any prior interviews of this defendant, Mr. Dukes?
No, ma'am.
And you said you picked him up. Where was it again that you picked him up?
At our office in Perry.
Was anyone else with him when you picked him up?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
And did he ride with you to another location?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you now know the name of that location or the address of that location?
Well, it's off Highway 129. I can't remember the specific address, but it was a pecan orchard in a wooded area off Highway 129,
And what county would that be in?
Ben Hill County.
From the time that you picked him up until you got to the pecan orchard, were you recording that?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you continue to record once you were at the pecan orchard?
Well, he ended up getting out of my vehicle, which is about the time that I turned it off, but we were recording as we pulled up into the orchard.
And now, did you advise the defendant of any of his rights prior to recording that conversation with him?
No, ma'am, I did not advise him of his rights. I reminded him of his rights. I knew that he'd been previously interviewed by law enforcement with his attorney present, and he met me there at the office, and I just reminded him of those rights and asked if I could ask him some questions as we drove to Ben Hill County.
Now, when you say you reminded him of his rights, did you go through those rights, or how did you do that?
I basically just said, he got in the vehicle and said, hey, we've got, a couple-hour drive till we get to Ben Hill County. I just wanted to remind you of your rights. You remember those? And he said that he did. I said, do you mind if I ask you some questions as we drive down there? And he said that was fine.
At any point, did the defendant seem confused about what you meant by his rights?
No, ma'am.
At any point, did he ask you any questions about that?
No, ma'am.
Did, in fact, he agree to speak with you as you were making that drive to Ben Hill County?
Yes, ma'am.
And about how long was that drive?
It was a total of about 2 hours. It probably took us an hour and 15 minutes or so to get there. We actually had to pull over in a parking lot off of 129 just north of where we were going, and we sat in the car for another, probably 30, 45 minutes before driving up there.
At any point, did you or anyone in your presence offer the defendant any hope of benefit if he agreed to speak with you that day?
No, ma'am.
At any point, did you or anyone in your presence threaten the defendant or intimidate him in any way to have him speak with you?
No, ma'am.
And at any point during that conversation, did he indicate that he wished to have his attorney present prior to speaking with you?
No, ma'am.
At any point, did he indicate that he did, in fact, not wish to speak with you or wanted to terminate that conversation?
No, not at all. No, ma'am.
After I know you said you turned the recorder off at some point when you were at the orchard. Did you take him back to his vehicle that day?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And then was the recorder on when you were taking him back to the vehicle?
No, ma'am, it wasn't.
Do you recall if you had any conversation, you were questioning him at that point?
We talked, but I can't remember anything specific about the case because we pretty much talked about everything on the way down there and waiting in the parking lot.
And when you got to the GBI office that day, what happened to the defendant?
Oh, he got in his vehicle and he left.
At any point during that particular encounter, was the defendant under arrest?
No, ma'am.
At any point was he placed in handcuffs?
No, ma'am.
At any point was he told he was not free to go?
No, ma'am.
Just a moment, Judge. No further questions.
Yeah, I'm just briefly. Agent, when you met with Bo Dukes on February 22nd, 2017, to take him down to Ben Hill County, you knew you were going to have a pretty long drive ahead of you.
That's right. Yes, sir.
About 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Right. Yes, sir.
And at that time, you knew you were going to be asking him questions about this case.
That's correct.
You knew you'd be asking questions about a criminal investigation.
That's correct.
You knew you would be asking him questions which, if answered, could potentially incriminate him.
That's correct.
All right. Did you leave from the GBI office to meet him, to meet you at the GBI office? Where'd y'all meet up?
Yeah, we met at the GBI office in Perry.
Okay, and that's the Region 13 field office?
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Y'all have those Miranda forms like Jason was talking about being signed on the 21st there at that office?
Right. We do.
Okay. Any reason you couldn't have gotten one, put it in the car with you, and just had Mr. Duke sign it?
Well, I spoke with Agent Shadell before I picked him up, and we had a discussion, and he explained that in his previous interview with Bo and yourself the day before that he talked about that we may need to speak with him further and that those rights may carry over into further conversations and that there wasn't an issue with that. So we had a brief conversation about that beforehand, just on the telephone. And so that's why I just clarified and reminded him of his rights when he got in the car with me.
And when you say on the telephone, you're talking about Agent Shadell?
Right, yes, sir.
Were you present on the 21st when the statement was given?
No, sir, I was not.
Okay. Were you present on the 19th when Mr. Duke sat down at the GBI field office to talk with some prosecutors before agreeing to tell what happened?
No, sir, I was not present.
Right. Did you ever ask anyone what was said during that closed-door meeting?
No, I don't, no, not specifically, no.
Well, did you ask things generally? You said not specific.
No, I never asked about the content of those conversations, no, sir.
Very good. Do you have a Miranda card you keep with you?
I do, yes, sir.
Did you read the rights you discussed with Mr. Dukes on the 22nd of February 2017 off that card, or just kind of wing it from memory?
No, sir.
Not off the card, you just cited it?
No, well, he got in the vehicle and I said, hey, I know you've been here, read your rights. And I said, do you remember those rights? He said, yes. And I said, do you mind if I ask you some questions as we drive down? He said, no, it's fine.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Understanding, as I think I understand your testimony to be that you knew you might ask questions that were incriminating, but let me ask you this. The purpose of taking him to this area known as the pecan orchard, what was the purpose of that?
It was to, as I understand it, assist in locating the body of Tara Grinstead.
Okay. And at that point, do you have any knowledge or did you have any personal knowledge prior to speaking with Bo Dukes as to what his involvement was in the murder of Tara Grinstead?
I can't recall at what specific time I learned of Bo's involvement. We were all doing interviews around that time, at some point that I did, and it could have been before that I knew that he had interviewed with Jason Shadell, but I can't say for certain. I mean, I knew that there was some involvement.
So let me ask this a little differently. During that ride down to the pecan orchard, the purpose of speaking with Bo Dukes, was that to have him incriminate himself, or was the purpose of that to try and locate the remains of Tara Grinstead?
Oh, I mean, the purpose was to help find Tara Grinstead.
I don't have any further questions, Judge.
Bob.
I do, just briefly. Your testimony is that Mr. Dukes was assisting you, trying to help you find the remains of Miss Grinstead.
Right. At some point, he reached out. I wasn't sure if it was Bo himself or if you did to law enforcement about
helping assist locate Tara's body. And so I was asked to go pick him up and drive him down there.
And just so we're clear on the timeline, you know that there's a meeting, 2/19/2017, at the GBI office between Mr. Dukes, his lawyer, counsel for the state.
Yes.
Correct? They give some information about what happened to Ms. Grinstead, and he walks out of the GBI office that day, not under arrest.
Right. I knew it was about, Ms. Grinstead's case, as far as exactly what was discussed on the 19th, I know he came and he left.
Okay. You ever reviewed Agent Shadell's case file?
I've reviewed probably portions of it, but, to say I've reviewed the whole file.
Big case file.
It's very big.
1,900 exhibits or something like that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
But then fixing the timeline again, Mr. Dukes is back on the 21st, gives you a statement.
no, he did not. It was
Not you, but he gives the GBI a statement.
right.
Okay. He walks it out of that meeting again, not under arrest,
Right. Yes, correct.
meets up with you the next day, and as you described, tries to assist you in locating where Mrs. Grinstead's remains may be.
Right. Well, what so much helped assisted me, we had several agents that were down looking for her. I was doing other interviews when I was asked to go pick him up.
All right, fair enough. And then you brought him back to Perry, and he left,
Right. Yes, sir.
walked out, not under arrest?
Right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No further questions on this witness.
All right, you step in.
Thank you.
Anything further?
No, sir.
Judge, may we approach?
Yeah.